Ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, it's 10 bells and time for another Brews at 10. PMQ's returns this evening. Hope you're all doing very well. Brett James straight in there with a gifted membership. Thanks a lot for that, Brett. Hope you're very well this evening. Great to see you back. And Itch Your Little Bamboo. Hope you enjoy those perks as well. Thanks again for that, Brett. That's a great way to show solidarity on the channel. Hope you're having a good one. And we've got Davinia Von Nakarizer in the chat as well. And Octo, great to see you back as well. And throwing up the Palestine flags early on too. Also very good to see. As always, solidarity. Free Palestine. So this is the Brews at 10. I'm your host Lefty, for those of you who aren't regular viewers on the channel. This is a channel made by socialists, for socialists, and keeps a left eye on the right-wing governments of the world. Thank you very much for being here with me tonight, this evening, this Wednesday, as we creep into September a little bit more. And that does, of course, mean that PMQs is back. There are a couple of other stories out in the last day or two that I'll be going over before we get into the bulk of PMQs. We've got a revised game/counter as well. I'll be filling you in on that very shortly. But thanks for all of your comments in the chat. Please do hit the subscribe button if you're not a subscriber already. And you can join others in the chat just 60 seconds later. Let us know your thoughts. As well as how you're doing this evening. It's good to see that you're all doing pretty well. Greetings, ahoy to you all. Fantastic. And it's been a while since we've had PMQs. Of course, as always, although it has been a while, that will be my genuine reaction on the stream this evening. I've not seen any of PMQs, so I'll be calling it like I see it, fresh off the bat. And without further ado, of course, as always, shout out to the members on the channel. Thanks for your support, and thanks again to Brett James for that gifted membership at the start of the stream. So all these fine people, brothers and sisters who support the channel as well. If you want to join that list, it's just 99 pence. Take a look at the perks if you hit the button underneath the screen. And I've updated this list with everybody who joined or got a gift membership on the last live stream, Brews at 10 on Monday. Great to have you on board if you're new. Thanks to lots of people who've renewed memberships recently as well. Great to see you continuing to support the channel. Great to see our community growing. A broader community. More thoughts, more minds, more ideas. More tea-based puns as well. Solidari-Tea, ladies and gentlemen. Here's to prosperity. and the list is continuing to grow. Shout out to Octo for some recent suggestions there as well. I've been trying to get hold of the world's finest producers to put together some sort of rap or song for it. Also, I've been scouring student union pubs trying to find upcoming poets who might want to get on that as well with the Solidari-Tea. Not really, of course, I'm joking. About the going around student union bars thing. Good evening, Davinia. Thanks for the shout out in the chat. Scrolling through, we'll get started very shortly. Obviously a few things to get through with shout outs to members and stuff. And I'll be talking through the new counter as well before we get into things. And also the Grenfell inquiry report, which came out today. It's taken 7 years, and there's going to be at least a further 2 years before any prosecutions might be brought forward. I'll be diving into that very shortly. As well as the Tory leadership race. Priti Patel's been knocked out. Get out your supersized tissues and your small violins, everybody. It's bad news for a Tory. Oh dear. Won't somebody please think of the oppressive upper classes? And it looks like Robert Jenrick is the new frontrunner, so I'll be touching on that very briefly before we go into PMQs as well. Kit Gilmore, a very warm welcome to you too. As warm as a hot tasty beverage. Cheers, Solidari-Tea. Great to see you all. So let's get cracking. Let's get across to the screen and go through a couple of stories very quickly. Just a reminder of developments in the last day or two with things as I mentioned earlier. Where are the biscuits, Davinia? They're right here. They're right here next to me. They are never outside of arm's reach during a live stream. Depending on the length of any clips and things I show. I might treat myself to one or two during a stream. Other oat-based biscuits are available, but yes, the one you mentioned there in the chat, Octo, I do recommend. Or even supermarket brand imitation. Depending on the supermarket, of course. Not Tesco, BDS. For example, other boycotts are available. No pizza tonight. No. Not yet. The night isn't done. Still a couple of hours almost left for pizza tonight. Before the day's done. Right, let's skip across to the screen. Sorry, was that a bit quiet there? Is that better? Cranked it up a bit. Just noticing in the chat. Thanks for that. Hopefully that's a bit better. But this is far too after the fact. I was just saying. 72 families have had to wait for 7 years already, and it's going to be 2 years before anyone's even prosecuted. So all of these firms, all of these corrupt firms have been named. US firm Arconic, manufacturer of cladding. Manufacturers made false and misleading claims. A chronic lack of leadership at London Fire Brigade. Government and others failed to give proper consideration to the dangers of some kind of cladding over decades. Local councils, tenant management organisation. The list goes on and on. I was listening on the radio earlier with on an interview with someone who was involved in a testing development company, and unfortunately his intentions were scrapped just before the Grenfell conclusion in reference to this cladding. And he says there's absolutely no way that buildings should be built in this way. It's a disaster waiting to happen. It's no good changing things afterwards, because 72 lives have been lost, including 18 kids, 72 families. We'll just quickly get through this before I move on to another story, and then PMQs. Sunak's thrown his oar in. Said the report is a damning indictment of over 30 years of successive state failures. But this happened on the Tories' watch. Liberal Democrat leader Sir Ed Davey said, criminality must be investigated, tried and punished, be it corporate manslaughter, fraud or misconduct in public office. It's the same old story, cutting corners, a lot of money being exchanged, a lot of things being ignored deliberately for financial gain. And we're back to the meeting in underground car parks with trench coats, exchanges of briefcases and envelopes, etc. And victims' names were read out as the inquiry concluded, as well, it says there. It's awful, of course. My thoughts do go out to all of the 72 families and those victims. It was concluded that all of the people who died of asphyxiation, apparently from toxic fumes, before the fire reached them, because the families have been left wondering that for a while as well. I'll just finish by pointing that out, and of course these people deserve justice. Let's just hope that they get it. But if it was, let's say, a tower block in Canary Wharf in the Financial Institute, do you think it would have maybe taken this long? 7 years. I know a lot of organisations and political bodies on a public and national level have been investigated, but would it have taken this long? That's something you have to ask yourself, really, isn't it? I'll just quickly go on to this before we do PMQs. Where are we? Just quickly about this leadership race. So Patel is out. What a great choice. So she got the least amount of votes. Apparently, Jenrick got the most. As I said, I'll just bring the background music back in. So very quickly. At this point, it's, you know, it's total cronyism. The Tories, when they go and vote, just basically want to try and cozy up to who might potentially be the next leader at the earliest opportunity to curry favour further down the road. But Patel's out. Jenrick got 28 votes, followed by Kemi Badenoch, who got 22 votes. Apparently they were quite impressed by a statement about not being afraid of Doctor Who. Strange times we live in. Cleverly came third, and then Tom Tugend Hatt with 17. There's more votes in a couple of weeks, until there's 2 candidates left, obviously. But they're all a right rum lot, as we know here on My Left Eye. Hedy, thanks for joining us this evening. Andy Carter, great to see you back as well. Just wanted to bring you up to speed with that one. There's Sunak, who you might have forgotten is actually leader of the opposition. He's not been in the news stories much of late, really, has he? That's just the timescale. Go through that quickly. So today the MPs voted. Then it's the 29th of September to 2nd of October. There's the conference. Get down there and protest outside the conference if you can. Then there's a couple of days voting until it gets down to just 2. And then you'll know after the ballot closes on Halloween, of all dates. On Halloween, 31st of October. Alright, well, bollocks to him anyway. Whoever wins. Doesn't really matter, does it? Okay, let's take a look at PMQs then. Of course, we'll be seeing Sunak's latest turn in opposition. Whoops, my finger. How did that get in there? Whoops. Oh, can't get it off. It's stuck. Some sort of technical fault. Just have a long sip of tea and think about how to... Oh, it's that button. Yep. Goodness. Over we go. Okay, I've just got that queued up. All right. Strap yourselves in. It's PMQs. What's Keith got lined up? Oh, I will very quickly explain as well about the new counter. It's the delivery counter every time. Every time he says deliver, or any Labour MP says deliver, we're going to keep a running score, as you can see. Just going to bring up the little thumbnail I've got as well. There we go. Right, so we'll keep a running count of the word deliver, or delivering, you know, close permutations. Right, Lindsay, off you go.
We now come to Prime Minister's questions. I call Bill Esterson.
Question 1, Mr. Speaker.
Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I know the whole House will want to congratulate our Team GB Olympic and Paralympic athletes and support staff for their outstanding achievements so far. Mr. Speaker, yesterday's incident in the Channel was shocking and deeply tragic, and our thoughts are with all those who've lost their lives and their families. We must have a renewed determination to end this. And Mr. Speaker, the chair of the Grenfell Tower inquiry, Sir Martin Morbick, has today published the inquiry's Phase 2 report. And I know that the whole House will be, thoughts of the House will be with the bereaved and the survivors of the Grenfell power tragedy and the residents in the immediate community.
The counters for how many times anyone from the Labour Party says deliver or words close to it, Davinia. We're going to keep a running score.
In addition to my duties in this House, I shall have further such meetings
later today.
Bill Esterson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Can I associate myself with the Prime Minister's remarks about the loss of life in the Channel and about Grenfell? The latest suicide figures are a sobering reminder of the misery caused by mental ill health. McGall Health Park in my constituency is a centre of excellence with high, medium and low security hospitals on the same site. The staff do an amazing job, but demand has gone through the roof, especially since the pandemic. Does my right honourable friend agree that it is essential that we have the same level of priority for mental health care and physical health care in this country?
Yes, and I thank my honourable friend for raising this critical issue. I think so many are affected by the tragedy of suicide. I'm pleased to hear about the work that he refers to, but 1 million people are not getting the support, the mental health support that they need. And that is why we will recruit 8,500 mental health workers to treat adults and children, and bring forward legislation to modernise the Mental Health Act, an act which I think is well overdue for modernisation. Thank you.
We come to the Leader of the Opposition.
Somehow I can smell cuts. I think I was trying to smooth over future coming cuts. Oh, there's Sunak.
Tribute to the Grenfell community, and we're going to rightly discuss that important issue shortly after.
I've almost forgot that he was a person.
Congratulating our record-breaking Olympians and Paralympians on everything that they have achieved. And lastly, could I just pay tribute to the hard work, bravery and dedication of our police. This summer, in challenging circumstances, they served our communities commendably and kept us all safe. Now, Mr. Speaker, government is about making choices, and the new Prime Minister has made a choice. He has chosen to take the winter fuel allowance away from low-income pensioners and give that money to certain unionised workforces in inflation-busting pay rises. So can I just ask the Prime Minister, why did he choose train drivers over Britain's vulnerable pensioners?
One of the worst elements about Starmer's Labour being so neoliberal, adopting Tory policy, is that it gives Sunak and future Tory leaders perhaps plural, a massive stick to beat them with. Because Rachel Reeves herself stood up at the dispatch box on the opposition side and criticised the Tories for planning on scrapping the winter fuel allowance. So this is what you're going to see. What's going on, Keith? Let's crack on.
Mr. Speaker, this government was elected to clear up the mess left by the party opposition and to bring about the change that the country desperately needs. Our first job was to audit the books, and what we found was a £22 billion black hole. Well,
No chance. You already knew about that. We've been over this several times. You knew. It was pointed out to you in the very chamber that you stood in, Keith.
Outside of the pandemic. His words. So we've had to take tough decisions to stabilise the economy and repair the damage, including targeting winter fuel payments whilst protecting pensioners. 800,000 pensioners are not taking up pension credit. We intend to turn that around. We're going to align housing benefit and pension credit, something the previous government deferred year after year after year. And because of our commitment to the triple lock, pensions are projected to increase by over £1,000 in the next 5 years.
Rishi Sunak.
Well, Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister also inherited inflation back at target, interest rates being cut, unemployment low.
Well, we've heard that for years. I'll just very quickly say that it's not a case of out of one hand and in the other with Starmer. It's taking something out of one hand and putting perhaps half back into the other, with these vague notions about increases to pension credit, etc. We know what a pledge from Keith is worth, let's just put it that way.
And it was also his decision that a pensioner living on just £13,000 will have their winter fuel allowance removed. So can the Prime Minister explain to Britain's low-income pensioners why he has taken money away from them whilst at the same time given more money to highly paid train drivers?
Well, Mr. Speaker, we spent the whole election with him trying to tell the country that everything was fine, and this is the result they got. A massive mandate on this side to change the country. And if he carries on pretending everything is fine for ordinary people across the country, they're going to be there for a very, very long time. And I remind him that we inherited absolute chaos from the party opposite. We lost an average of 3 million working days a year to strikes under his watch. And you cannot fix the economy if the trains don't work, and you can't fix the economy if the NHS...
Oh, there's going to be plenty of strikes under your premiership, Starmer. Believe me. On the road that you're going on, there's going to be plenty of strikes.
She said, her words, I have people in my constituency telling me they don't need winter fuel payments. Why do we not have a more sophisticated mechanism for mean testing? That's their favourite, I think, in the contest that they are having.
Rishi Sunak.
Oh, Mr. Speaker.
And you'll hear them say, my constituents have been in touch with me and told me that they don't need their winter fuel payments. As if. Regardless of how much money you earn, how big your pension is, I should say in this case, if you received a payment from the government, from the DWP or HMRC, said we figured out that we owe you this money, you're entitled to this money, is the very first thing that you would do get in touch with your Member of Parliament in your constituency and say, oh, I might have been sent too much money? I don't think whatever your class or size of your pension is, that that's something that you choose to try and get in touch with your MP about, unless you the sort of person who writes to your MP every time you change your socks. But I can't foresee that happening. And we hear these invented stories of individuals happening all the time. I remember one instance years ago about a Tory posting on Twitter that they went into the local shop and then literally everyone in the shop started to cheer for them and pat the back. Things like this. It's just made up.
Speaker, again, the Prime Minister talked about the public finances. The UK's public finances are more robust than almost that of any other major advanced economy. Here we have it.
Von Nakarizer, it sounds like your nephew is very well informed there. He calls it like it is. The shouty men in suits. Grey suits. Grey or blue.
I don't need a reaction back.
Coils in.
Well, the UK currently has a lower deficit than France, America, Italy and Japan. It has the second lowest debt in the entire G7. And he opposed every difficult decision that we took to deliver that. So I certainly...
Well, we've got a first... Should we... Unbelievably, it's come from Sunak, but not Keith. I'm going to count that just to get the ball rolling. In fact, let's just throw it open to all parties at the moment. Brett James and Andy Carter, thanks a lot for those respective gifted memberships. Awesome. Thanks again. Hope you enjoyed the perks, and very warm welcome to Bumblebee 84. The video clip of the chimps, Octo. What's that? What's that one? I'm just trying to think. Let me know. I'll try and keep my eye on the chat. My left eye will be on the chat. Thanks again, Brett and Andy, for those gifted memberships. Awesome way to show solidarity. I'm throwing up the Palestine flags also. Viva Viva Palestina. Oh, I've not updated the counter. We've got one. On we go.
I'm not going to take any lectures from him on that, Scott. But he talked about protecting ordinary people. Well, last year, under the Conservative government, a low-income pensioner with just £13,000 received not only the winter fuel payment, but also hundreds of pounds of additional...
Just quickly on the counter, sorry for throwing up the old Keith googly-eyed picture there. I was going to edit a different picture, but I'll have that ready for the next PMQs. Basically, it's going to be a theme I'm working on. It's Postman Twat, and Keith's going to be delivering quite a lot of delivers, pretty much. So it's going to be based around that. Keep your eye out for Postman Twat.
Cost of living support, both of which he has now scrapped. Age UK have said cutting the winter fuel allowance is the wrong policy. And only this morning, we've learnt that the vast majority of the poorest pensioners in poverty, are going to see that vital support removed. So can he tell the House, very specifically to the pensioners that are watching, how much less support a pensioner on £13,000 will receive this winter?
He talks about tough decisions. It's tough to inherit.
It's got to this point, ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters. They're arguing over whose tough decisions were the best or worst. Technically, it's the worst. The worst for most people. ordinary working people, who they like to mention a lot. But now this back and forth of, oh yeah, you've made tough decisions. Well, I made the tough decisions, pal. No, I made the tough decisions, guy. Well, I didn't make, like, as many crap tough decisions as you did, friend. And so on. Hedy, thanks a lot for the 5 gifted as well. We're getting awesome shows of solidarity tonight. Thank you very much. Hope you'll enjoy those perks. Thanks for the shout out, Clive, as well on the perks. They are Taste Tea. Solidarity to all the new members. And special thanks to everybody who's gifted memberships tonight. Wonderful. You're wonderful people. Solidarity. So where was I? Yeah, just what it's been reduced down to, really, in terms of these early back and forths between Starmer and Sunak.
£22 billion black hole, which the OBR did not need. That is the inheritance. That's what they left. Now, back when they were in government, they'd have pretended it wasn't there.
It's like you've inherited the suits and the charm and a lot of their policies as well, Keith. But you've just cranked some of them up, tweaked them to make them a bit worse.
Prime Minister wants to do what we have to do in relation to the winter fuel allowance, but we have to take the tough decision to stabilise our economy to ensure that we can grow it for the future. And as I've said, we are working hard on pension credit. We're allowing housing benefits, which they didn't do for years, and over 5 years, it's a projected increase of up to £1,000 for those on pensions. We are tough decisions that they don't.
The government doesn't have to choose to take money off low-income pensioners in order to give it to highly paid train drivers. That is a choice that he has made, and it will be clear to any pensioners watching that he simply can't explain why he has made that choice. But, Mr. Speaker, turning to another important issue. The government has suspended 30 of the UK's 350 arms export licences to Israel. It's a decision that the Chief Rabbi says beggars belief and will encourage our shared enemies.
Or give over your just as lobbied, if not even more, by Israeli lobbies, Zionist lobbies.
Still being held by Hamas.
Prime Minister.
Well, Mr. Speaker, can I start by saying I think the whole House will be shocked by the horrific killing of 6 hostages in the last few days. And I know I speak for the whole House when I say that.
But not a word on dead Gazans, dead Palestinians, very biased, shame and disgust.
Aid desperately needed can get into the region, and we can begin the path to a 2-state solution. Now, he asks how we arrived at this decision. He knows very well.
I see what you're doing in the chat. I like it. My dad made harder decisions than your dad. Well, my dad delivered more tools than your dad. My dad was a tool maker. One day I'll be a real boy. He's a real boy. Keep them coming.
Because the legal framework is clear. The latest guidance was issued in 2021 under his government. And that means that licences have to be kept under review, as they were by his government. And I think he probably knows the advice that was given to his government. He understands the framework. We've carried out...
Neither of you understand international law, Keith. Neither of you. It's very evident. There's a litany of evidence.
We will, of course, continue to stand by Israel's right to self-defence. But it is important...
Are you talking about...
...committed to the international rule of law.
Wow. You almost beat me to it. Are you talking about international law, Keith? Because why are you not mentioning the judgments by the ICC, the ICJ, for example? Obviously, 6 civilian deaths in the case of the hostages he was referring to is a very bad thing. But he'll never make mention of the tens of thousands of dead Gazans that we've seen over recent months. He'll also ignore the fact that Netanyahu is essentially an international criminal on the run. Probably daren't leave his own country in case he lands on ICC membership soil, and then he'll be placed under arrest. And if you want to know what I think about the recent reduction in arms sales, check out the last live stream. I did go into that in a bit more detail. Lammy's just as bad on this. Awful, Keith.
That gives us the strength of argument with our allies on important issues. This is a difficult issue, I recognise that, but it's a legal decision, not a policy decision. And the Prime Minister knows the framework, and they shout, they issued the guidance, they know what the test is, that test has been assessed, we've come to a conclusion, and we've put that before the House to consider.
Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I appreciate the Prime Minister's answer, but he'll know that decisions like this also have important and broader geopolitical implications.
Just a sec. Did Hoyle announce Sunak as Prime Minister? I'm just going to go back 20 seconds. Did Hoyle announce Sunak as Prime Minister then, or did he say Deputy Prime Minister? Because usually he'd say him by name.
And they shout, they issued the guidance, they know what the test is, that test has been assessed, we've come to a conclusion, and we've put that before the House to consider.
Prime Minister.
He did!
Mr. Speaker,
He announced him as the Prime Minister. Lindsay Hoyle just announced Rishi Sunak as the Prime Minister. I know they've been away for a while. Bloody hell, Lindsay. You've got one job.
I appreciate the Prime Minister's answer, but he'll know that decisions like this also have important and broader geopolitical implications. And he mentioned allies. It's essential that we maintain transatlantic unity.
My left ear was on that one.
Terrorist threats and avoid any perception of splits between our two.
Speaking of ears, tongue-in-cheek, carry on, Rishi.
Engagement he had with the United States prior to taking this significant decision.
Prime Minister.
I acknowledge the importance of working with our allies on all issues, as we have been doing, as I was able to make very clear.
Why not just rip your suit open to reveal your I Love Israel t-shirt, your I Love Netanyahu, your I Love Occupation and Genocide written, if you got room on the back to write that? Why don't you just be that absolutely obvious when you refer to our allies? Our allies. I don't want any part in this as a citizen of this bloody country. I don't want British taxes going towards these kind of atrocities. Our allies. That's just a reference to those who are on the Zionist payroll. That's where the our comes from, not from the British people. The British people have been very clear about this. There are going to be further demonstrations this weekend as well, in cities all across the country. And I would urge you to go and show solidarity for Gaza if you can make it to one of them where you live. Who's the we here? Our allies.
At the NATO summit that I attended in the early summer. And of course, as he would expect, as the House would expect, we have talked this through with our allies. They understand. They have a different legal system. That is the point they made. It chunters from the. This is a serious issue. It requires
no legal system, be it UK or Israel, overrides international law, Keith. Lammy's tried to play this one as well. It's not how you define it, it's how international law defines it. Surely you know that. Has he got any association with the legal profession? Do any of you know? Let me know in the chat. if you think there's ever been previous mentionings of Keith's association with such matters. Struggle to think.
A serious consideration, and the Prime Minister knows the legal framework. He knows the legal framework very well. He also knows that applying that framework...
It's been declared. It's already been declared by the ICC. Fuck's sake.
Then say, I'm not going to implement the legal decision and conclusion that's been reached. I don't think he's really inviting me to do that.
He's declared an international criminal, and you sent Lammy over to go and try and shake his hand.
Emotional ones too. And the Prime Minister took this action on the very same day as the funerals of Israeli hostages murdered by Hamas. It's something that the Board of Deputies described as a terrible, terrible message to be sending. And I hope the Prime Minister understands the hurt that has been caused, and can he take this opportunity to reassure Israel and the Jewish
Dystopian.
that the United Kingdom
So
and its
dystopian.
House stands behind
The
Israel
misdirection.
and its right to self-defence.
Prime Minister.
Let me be very clear about that. I've said it before, I'll say it again. We absolutely recognise and support Israel's right to self-defence and have taken action in support of that right of self-defence, and I've made that repeat.
Keith. Bloody Keith. I might know a few things about the law, but apparently on paper, it's supposed to be nowhere near as much as you do, given your resume. Okay? However, I do know one thing. I do know that the right to defend yourself does not apply to occupied territory. So how are you going to get around that one? Legally. If that's the way you want to go at it, Keith. By all means, have at it, because you'll get your arse handed to you. I believe it's even in the Geneva Convention, it was in the Accords.
Clear in all of my engagements with Israel across the region and with all of our allies. I absolutely stand by that. But in relation to licences, this isn't an Israel issue. It's the framework for all licences that have to be kept under review. It's the same test for all licences, as the Prime Minister knows. And having applied the law to the facts and come to a legal conclusion, I don't think the Prime Minister is really inviting me to put that to one side. We have to, the Leader of the Opposition. This is a serious issue. We either comply with international law or we don't. And we only have strength in our arguments because we comply with international law. I appreciate the party opposite didn't think that international law mattered, and that's why we got into the pickle that we did.
Lloyd Hatton.
I welcome the Home Office's decision to close the Bibby Stockholm barge in my constituency. We all know this barge
Taking a bit of a change in direction now.
Second, it cost the taxpayer a fortune. Third, it was laden with fire and disease risks. And fourth, it likely contributed to the death of a 27-year-old asylum seeker on board. So can the Prime Minister reassure my constituents that this unworkable gimmick and similar unworkable gimmicks will be closed down as we clear up the mess from the party?
No, they've got all fresh, new, unworkable gimmicks. Don't worry about it. They're on it. They're all over it. Keith's got it. On that whiteboard in the boardroom, it's got a massive circle around it in red. In bold, in capital letters, inside.
And in the first 2 months, we've removed more than 400 people on planes who had no right to be here. Compare that with the 4 volunteers sent to Rwanda that cost £700 million.
Let's start screwing over pensioners and attacking migrants to try and further distance ourselves from the Tories. Not sure about that strategy.
Welcome the inquiry and look forward to the statement we'll discuss shortly. Mr. Speaker, for the last 18 years, Norman has been a full-time carer for his wife, Ros, who has MS and Alzheimer's disease. Earlier this year, he was forced to go back to work to earn the extra money for the costs of caring for his wife. As their income is just a few £100 above the limit for pension credit, they're set to lose their winter fuel allowance unless the Prime Minister listens to these benches and others and changes this plan. So, if he doesn't, what advice does the Prime Minister have to Norman and Ros and millions of...
Oh, he's got a £22 billion black hole, and he's got a plan for change.
I thank the honourable member for raising that important question. I know how much he, both politically and personally, has championed carers. We have taken a difficult decision, and I'm not pretending it's not a difficult decision. Of course it's a difficult decision.
It was more difficult a decision than Sunak made. That's for sure.
We went through, the first thing the Chancellor did was an audit. She found £22 billion worth
there it is.
Unfunded.
I should have put the counter at every time they mentioned 22 billion, the black hole counter. Might switch it up a bit. Who knows?
The last government did. Have to take tough decisions. We will put all the support in that we can. Obviously, talk to the learned gentleman about this, but we have to take the tough decisions in relation to this. They walked away from those decisions. That what got us into the mess in the first place. You can't grow your economy, you can't fix your economy unless you stabilise it first.
Ed Davey.
Can I say to the Prime Minister, we recognise the appalling financial problems left to him by the last Conservative government, but can I say no one understands the difficult decisions you need to take to balance the books as unpaid family carers like Norman. So many millions of pensioners have struggled over recent years thanks to the last government. The number of pensioners who can't afford to heat their homes has doubled since 2019. So will the Prime Minister support our campaign for more urgent action to invest in insulation and renewables so we can help pensioners and all families make it cheap?
Ogham the Bold, thanks for joining the chat. Yes, it's Ed Gravy, austerity democide man.
There are 800,000 pensioners who are not claiming pension credit, which of course then deals with the winter payment allowance, and so that's why we are taking so much care to ensure that we can get them onto pension credit. Again, aligning housing benefit with pension credit, something they left undone for years.
You're contradicting yourself in the fact that you're saying you'd had to make a tough cut, but then pretending that you're giving it back to people, so therefore you've undone the tough cut that you say is a good thing and that you had to do, and it's going to stabilise the economy. Do you see the paradoxes that you create for yourself, Starmer? Do you see the corner that you've painted yourself into with this dross?
The drug had caused avoidable harm. Pemidose was given to women in the 1960s and the 70s and resulted in many babies being born with severe disabilities. For the last 12 years, I have stood in this Parliament and pleaded with the last government repeatedly to do the right thing. So I ask the Prime Minister today, will he commit to take a fresh approach to this issue, and will he meet with me and the campaigner Marie Lyon to discuss how we can give closure to the families who have been denied justice for the last 50 years?
Well, I thank her for that question and for her.
Careful, Yasmin, if you start talking sense, you might get suspended.
To the families who believe their children suffered from these tests. And committed to reviewing any new evidence which comes to light. Mr. Speaker, at the moment the Health Department is reviewing...
It's a planted question, of course.
Professor Danielson, and we'll follow the results of that review. And I'm happy to ensure that the Health Minister does meet her to discuss this further.
Gavin Robinson.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Can I thank the Prime Minister for visiting Northern Ireland within the last fortnight, and particularly for the time he spent with injured officers of the Police Service of Northern Ireland. He will know of their courage, but he will also know of the dogged determination of our Chief Constable, John Boucher, in his desire to see adequate resourcing for his officers who not only stand for law and order in Northern Ireland, but stand in the face of racism, of violence, and of an ongoing national security threat from dissident Republicans. So can I therefore ask him to earnestly and urgently engage in a discussion about uplifting the national security grant afforded to the Police Service of Northern Ireland and ensure that the PSNI can face the challenges that we need them to face head on.
Well, I thank him for that question, and it was important for me to go to Belfast to meet the injured officers and to say simply thank you for what they are doing and, of course, the impact it has on their families. I do recognise the difficult financial position the PSNI faces, and the Chief Constable and I have spoken about this on more than one occasion, as you would expect. I mean, predominantly it's for the Justice Minister and the Executive to set the PSNI's budget.
He's a liability. Thanks for that one, Andy. Liability. I don't think we've had that one yet.
How important it is to him and to the PSNI and to Northern Ireland more generally.
Mafude.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Last week, ticket-selling websites like Ticketmaster left millions of Oasis fans furious. But worse still came minutes later when tickets started to be relisted online for thousands of pounds. This profiteering at fans' expense is not a one-off. The Cooperative Party's campaigning for a new licensing body with real teeth to tackle this online touting.
I didn't think this would have.
Does the Prime Minister agree with me that fans should be at the heart of live music and that urgent action is needed to protect fans against this horrid practice?
Prime Minister.
Yes, I do. And firstly, it's great that Oasis are back together. I think, from what I've determined, about half the country is probably queuing for tickets over the weekend. But it is depressing to hear on price hikes. I'm committed to putting fans at the heart of music and end extortionate price resales, and we're starting a consultation to work out how best we can do this.
Mr. Speaker, offshore energy's
that was semi-surreal, watching them talking about that.
Increases will cost our economy £13 billion, risk 35,000 jobs, and see investment in the North Sea slashed from £14.1 billion to just £2.3 billion by 2029. It also suggests that there's going to be a £12 billion cost in tax revenues. How does this proposal chime with the Prime Minister's goal of economic growth? And will he reverse this tax increase, which industry leaders are calling economic suicide for the oil and gas sector?
Mr. Speaker, we're committed to the transition that is necessary in relation to energy to renewables, which will lead
he should be committed.
Energy independence,
if you know what I mean.
And the jobs of the future. But let me be clear,
crazy mother
will play its part for many years to come, and that's why we've been really clear about the support that we have for oil and gas. And I'm sure she and others will want to celebrate the fact that just this week, Contracts for Difference secured a record 131 new clean energy projects, enough to power 11 million homes, and that is the jobs of the future.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Prime Minister will remember visiting my constituency in June, where we toured Germany Beck, a fantastic development of 600 new homes. But because of Tory dither and delay, it took the best part of a decade for that site to get through planning.
New council homes, or more rip-off rents and landlordism?
Can the Prime Minister reassure me that this government will speed up the planning process so we can get more homes built, and will one of his ministers meet with me to discuss the housing crisis in York?
Yes, I remember that visit well, and was struck by the delays in planning because the system was broken by the previous government. We will deliver 1.5 million new homes, Mr. Speaker, drive economic growth and fulfil the dream of home ownership, shattered for 14 years under the former government. And that means changing the planning rules, a tough decision they were not prepared to make that happen and to grow our economy. Thank you.
Mr. Carmichael.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Last month, SSE, the operators of the new Viking Energy wind farm in Shetland, were paid £2 million in order not to generate any electricity from it. Is there not something badly wrong with an energy market that pays big corporates not to produce electricity, while the people living amongst the turbines endure some of the highest levels of fuel poverty in the country? So will the Prime Minister and the Government now look seriously at the idea of an islands tariff, so that islands communities such as those represented...
Quick reminder, Scotland produces 5 times more energy than it consumes. They then have to give it to England, who sell it back to them at the highest rates in Europe.
Developments such as this.
Well, I thank the honourable gentleman for raising this issue, which is obviously a considerable concern to him and his constituents. The National Grid, as he knows, does balance the grid by occasionally requesting some generators to stop when there's not enough capacity on the network. That's not good enough. That's not acceptable for the reasons set out in his question. It's a problem that wasn't fixed over the last 14 years, but a problem we are determined to fix as we go forward. And I will make sure that a relevant minister speaks to him about the particular issue in his constituency.
Dr. Peter Prinsley.
Mr. Speaker, thank you. As a surgeon from East Anglia, I welcome the measures the new government has taken to fulfil its mission to fix the NHS. In my constituency of Bury St Edmunds and Stowmarket, the West Suffolk Hospital is badly affected by RAC. Just like the James Paget Hospital in Norfolk, where I've worked for nearly 30 years. Does the Prime Minister agree with me that the RAC hospitals must be priorities as the new government undertakes its review of the new hospital programme?
I thank him for his question and also...
just don't go on strike, because then you'll get a scolding from Starmer.
We have to reset the new hospital programme and put it on a sustainable footing. The last government promised 40 new hospitals. The problem is there weren't 40, they weren't new, and some of them weren't even hospitals. Hospitals with RAC will, of course, including West Suffolk Hospital, must be a priority. So we're reviewing the programme, and the Secretary of State will update Parliament as soon as possible.
Shaw.
After 14 miserable years of the worst Tory government in modern times, the best this Prime Minister can offer the British people is things can only get worse. Well, for him and his calamitous opinion ratings, that's probably true. But why does he think he has such an unprecedented fall in his popularity? Is it his attacks on the pensioners? Is it leaving children in poverty? Is it the re-emergence of Labour cronyism? Or is it because his austerity is even worse than the Conservative...
No Stephen Flynn.
I remember when they used to sit here. It's a long way up and there's very few of them, so I don't think we need lectures on popularity and
Speaker, I welcome this week's news
from Starmer. Very poor indeed.
Around Ofsted, including the removal of single-word judgments. This is great news for head teachers in West Lancashire who've raised this issue.
Single-word judgments such as above average. What? Just thought I'd throw that in there.
With me, along with other issues around Ofsted, and for parents who will have more transparency on the performance of schools. How does the Prime Minister see these changes developing a more positive relationship between Ofsted, government and schools, and improving standards so that all our young people can thrive?
Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, we're committed to the best education for every child, whatever their background and wherever they come from. The current single grade does not work well, and that's why we're going to have a richer dashboard which will give parents more information and allow intervention more quickly, and that's why it's been so warmly welcomed across the country.
Rebecca Pope.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I am new to this House, but I know that we all want our pensioners to live with dignity and security. In my constituency of Reigate, there are around 17,000 pensioners expected to lose their winter fuel payment this year.
Dignity and security, did she say? And what have we got in the chat? Popularity, poverty. And Andy, great to see you celebrating 2 months of membership. Thanks again for those gifted memberships earlier on as well. Thank you very much, brother. What else? Have we had any more? Tea-based puns. Let's have a quick scroll. Hospitality. Politics Clive. 40 new hospitals. Oh, that's stretching it a bit. We'll allow that one though, of course. Keep them coming.
Of most concern are those just above the pension credit threshold who will be hardest hit. Would the Prime Minister give consideration to broadening the eligibility for the winter fuel payment so that those low-income pensioners who rely on it to stay warm can continue to benefit?
Can I welcome her to her place? And Reigate is obviously a place I know very well, as she knows. But the reality is this decision has been taken because of the £22 billion black card. So responsibility. Responsibility for the decision lies with the party that broke the economy. There's a reason we have a mandate for change, and there's a reason that this party is now sitting there, and that's because they broke the economy. And I'm not going to apologise for clearing up the mess that they left.
Great to see Vicky Clee in the chat also.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Just weird. I'm wondering what happened in Reigate between those two. Any ideas?
Crime and street drinking now blight areas of Southall Town Centre, West Ealing and Hanwell Broadway in my constituency of Ealing Southall. So can the Prime Minister set out how his government will take action to ensure our town centres are transformed into places where my constituency can finally feel...
Not too familiar with Deirdre Costigan, but it's a very direct and almost angry form of a planted question. What do you think?
It really impacts lives across the country. We have to tackle it, and that's why we will put more police on the streets. We will have more effective powers to deal with antisocial behaviour, and we'll introduce Young Futures programmes to divert young people who are getting into trouble.
Sir Ashley Foulkes.
Question number 14, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. The Schools Minister will be happy to visit his constituency.
Sir Ashley Foulkes.
I thank the Prime Minister for his answer. Haygrove School is one of the top performing schools in Somerset. It is unfortunately one of those built by Caledonian Modular and now condemned as unsafe. So I'm grateful for the meeting with the Schools Minister. But can the Prime Minister give Haygrove School and the other schools affected an assurance that they will be rebuilt and quickly? Because those pupils and staff are still working in porter cabins.
I'm grateful. I do recognise how serious an issue this is and why he raises it. It is of real importance. The Minister will visit, and the Department of Education is pursuing all available avenues for redress against the parties responsible for the issues at the school. But I will make sure that the Minister is fully briefed and has a full discussion about this when that visit takes place.
Sean Davis.
Mr. Speaker, I'm a proud MP for a new town, but over the last 14 years, Telford has lost its A&E. Less police officers, GPs, teachers per head, and we've also had 40% cuts to our local government budgets. Will my right honourable friend, the Prime Minister, back places like Telford rather than overlook us, as has been the case over these last 14 years?
It's Planted Question City.
Really strong champion for his constituency. We're a government that will be based on actions, not slogans, and that's why we'll have local growth plans, improve public services and invest in transport.
Actions, not slogans? Oh, come on. Really?
Power to those with skin in the game.
Tim Farron.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In the last 5 years, there have been 10 fatal accidents on the A66 along the short stretch in the Eden Valley in Westmoreland. So in our community, we are naturally deeply concerned that the vital A66 Northern Transpennine project, which would make the roads considerably safer, has been put under review by this government. Will the Prime Minister take the opportunity now and end this uncertainty today, commit to this project and save lives?
I thank him for raising this question about fatalities on roads, and that is a very serious issue in relation to the A66 and other roads across the country. We have inherited a broken economy. We have to review what we're spending money on. We're going through that review and we'll report back as soon as we can.
Gurinder Joseph.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Will the Prime Minister join me in sending condolences to the family of Jadzia Koch, a 13-year-old boy who was stabbed and tragically killed in my constituency? Does the Prime Minister share my concerns about the prevalence of young people carrying knives, and what more can be done to end this scourge that is destroying families and communities?
Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I'm sure I speak for the whole House in saying our thoughts are with Jazia's family at this difficult time. This is tragic, it is senseless, and the age just absolutely makes one shudder. Our mission is to halve knife crime. Zombie-style knives and zombie-style machetes will be banned from the 24th of September, and there'll be a surrender scheme which has been started on 26th of August. And we are doing a rapid review on
Can't see police services being
online sale of knives, which is often
exempt
a problem
from
in these cases. So we will
the cuts that are yet to come as well.
With determination, and I invite everybody across the House, in light of this and so many other tragic cases, to join with us on that mission.
Final question.
Brett James, thanks for another gifted membership.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Those of us from Staffordshire Moorlands are immensely proud of our beautiful area and unique identity. So can the Prime Minister guarantee that we will not be forced into a devolution deal or local government
Simon, hope you enjoy your
against our will?
perks there.
I think it's very
Thanks again for that, Brett.
Have a say.
Thank you very much, brother.
It's equally important that we do devolve to those who have skin in the
And you're
game.
right, Vicky. Actions, not slogans, is a lovely slogan. The irony, another paradox.
That are relevant to them and their area.
That completes Prime Minister's questions. I'll let those who are leaving the chamber leave quickly before we start the statement. We now come to Prime Minister's questions.
Okay, that was that. That was that. He gave him a chance to all sod off in case you don't want to hear any of the upcoming dross. He's going to be every Wednesday. Paul himself was particularly quiet. He didn't have to intervene in any back and forth or anything like that. What did you make of that, people? What did you make of that session at PMQs? A lot of very predictable things came through. He only said deliver once, though. If it had been a £22 billion black hole counter, we would have had plenty there. Hope that's better on the old background music. Sorry about that. I don't know why it was coming through on 2 channels. Anyway, let's get back to Is that better? Is there oh, just scrolling up. Bear with me. Also, Brett, you're trying to buy Chris a gift membership, but it's not working, is that? Yeah, keep me posted on that. Chris and Brett James, let me know. But also, thanks for that new gift membership as well. Showing a lot of Solidari-Tea tonight, Brett. Thanks a lot for that. Let's see, it should allow you, yeah. If you've been trying to buy a gift membership for Chris as well, I'll try and look into that. You may have to enable accepting gifts from other members. And now we welcome Floor Snake on board as well. Thanks a lot for that gift, Vicky. So yeah, check your settings, please. And make sure that they're set to accept gift memberships. Great to see you back, Floor Snake. But I thought the back and forth about my tough decisions were worse than yours pretty much sums up where we're at. If I want to sort of review the whole PMQs very briefly. Cuts all the way. And I wasn't expecting, obviously I was expecting crap jokes from Keith, but not based around the Oasis ticket scandal, as it were. That was a bit of a surprise. And a lot of new faces in the comments. I'm gonna, you know, there's 600 of them. A lot of names and faces to get used to. Sorry guys, I've just got my eye on the chat again. Brett, is it that you're trying to gift memberships and it's gifting them to random subscribers as opposed to people who you're selecting? Is that what's going on? Festivities. Oh, that's good. But yeah, Vicky, you're right there as well with your point that YouTube reaches, you can give someone a membership even if they're not watching the live stream, which is kind of bizarre. But yeah, people still do get a notification via email, I think, as well as on YouTube, if that happens. It's happened to me before, for example, on Helena's No Justice channel. Someone's gifted me a membership before. And thanks a lot to anyone listening who's done that for me as well. Speaking of which, we'll quickly check who we might be raiding into. I know that Kevin was on earlier. There's nothing from Helena at No Justice. Big shout out to No Justice as well as Kevin Logan. Neither of them are live at the moment. There's two Navara streams upcoming. I'm going to be redirecting into one of those. Okay, cool. Thanks again, members. Thanks a lot so much for all of the gifted memberships. It's been great to see so much Solidari-Tea on tonight's live stream. I'll try and look into this ongoing problem about the selection with gift memberships, Brett. And just a reminder to make sure that your settings have gift membership enabled for you to be able to receive gift memberships from other viewers. And of course, I'll be back next Wednesday with another PMQ's themed Brews at 10. There'll be other Brews at 10s to come between now and then though. And I'll be with you on Sunday for the weekend live stream, of course. I'm going to try and push out some more main video content as well this week. Politics Clive. The gift selection does have some ambiguity. Groan. That's a good one actually. Right, so I'll pretty much leave things there. Ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, thanks for joining me on another Brews at 10. I've been your host Lefty, you've been wonderful. Thanks a lot for all of your comments as well in the chat. And if you're watching back on a replay, please do add a comment. I'll try and respond to as many of those as possible. Also, if you're watching back on a replay, please do consider using super thanks, which are active. There's other ways of showing solidarity. Please do check out the description of the stream or the channel. But for now, that's all from me. Take care everybody. My Left, I'll be seeing you soon.